Good evening, everyone. How are you all on this lovely evening? Man, we picked the best week to be inside for engagements. You know we did. Maybe it won't be that way in November. Thank you all for coming out and taking part in what I believe is one of the most important things that we will do as a school district community over the course of the next several years. So the fact that you thought it would not be a bad idea to come out and get involved and get engaged, I want you to know that it's very, very much appreciated by me. I'm not going to spend a lot of time up here because I think tonight's purpose is very, very clear. It's for us to gain some understanding about why we're going into this foray relative to 21st century learning spaces and analyzing our buildings moving into the future. And I want to spend the bulk of our time doing that. But I will let you know that it's embedded in this. Oftentimes when there are adult needs or there's staff needs, those are very, very important, and we try to honor those. When they're community needs, but in a place called school, we have to begin with students at the center, and that kind of points us back to our mission, and that's preparing each student in our community for success in life. And throughout this process, man, we have an awesome opportunity. We have an awesome opportunity to get this right for young people and shape the future direction of our school district. We have the talents as it relates to our staff, our teachers. We have the resources, given the resources that you all afford us as members of our community. And the last thing that we'll need is just care for every single kid to get this right. If we put those three things together, I'm sure that we are going to come out on the other side of this process super excited about the results we can get for young people. To start this school year, our board focused in on three priorities. They adopted these priorities as those measures that they want to look to the superintendent for over the course of this year. The first priority is increasing the achievement of every single kid in our district through innovative practices, making certain that we focus on their well-being, and equitable access across the community to program design and implementations. Number two, one of the primary reasons we sit here this evening is ensuring equitable access to future-ready learning environments by engaging all of our stakeholders, that will be many of you in this room, in the district's comprehensive facilities master planning process. Through this process, what we hope to do over the course of the next several months is align our fiscal resources and, when necessary, possibly adjust school boundaries to meet the instructional programming needs of all of our students pre-K through 12. And priority number three, I had someone tell me on the way into the room, and it didn't fall on deaf ears, because when you're a superintendent, any compliment is a good thing. And you have to tuck those away. As you know, you make those difficult decisions. But someone shared with me, Dr. Carpenter, I appreciate the fact that you're getting the community involved in this way, and that we all can be a part of the conversation. We've done some similar work before, hadn't always been done this way, so I took that little piece and I stuck it there, because sometimes even superintendents need a pat on the back. So that's what that priority three is all about. Involving you and making certain that you're involved in this communication. So what's our goal today? Our goal today is not to figure out the next set of boundaries in our school district. Our goal today is not to say where we're going to build a school and when we're going to build a school. But our goal today is to inspire each other to envision what the future of our schools could look like. This is our opportunity to dream. This is our opportunity to explore. And this is our opportunity to involve each of you in the process. As we move through, we will get to some options. And then in the next phase, we'll get to some recommendations. But that's not this evening. This evening is for us to understand our current reality, and let's just envision what we can be as a community together. Thank all of you for being here.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Carpenter. I want to echo Dr. Carpenter's comment. I appreciate you all coming out tonight. It shows the passion you have for education in the community of Leeson. My name is Scott Posh, and I'm with DLR Group. And I'm going to kind of help guide the presentation this evening as we move through the night, and as we share information and have a conversation with you all about the comprehensive facility master plan. Before I do that, I just want to talk briefly about the agenda, kind of show what our plans are for this evening. We'll talk a little bit about the Comprehensive Facility Master Plan overview, why that's important, what the district's working on currently from an education standpoint, and how that rolls into all this. We'll spend a little bit of time and share future-ready learning, the importance of that, what that might be. Hopefully you all have questions related to that because it's very important for the students as the district moves forward. We'll also talk a little bit about the lay of the land, and this is where we'll share demographic information that we pulled today on Lee Summit community projections into the future. So there's a lot of good data in there that you'll want to listen to. And then we'll talk a little bit about how that relates to capacity. We'll then open it up to the community engagement conversation. So you all have received a comment card as you walked in. If you would, please fill that out. We'll be collecting that, and that'll inform us as we move into the section. If you don't have a pen, please borrow one from your neighbor. And then we'll end the evening with an informal gallery walk. So the formal presentation will end after the community conversation. We've got several stations set up around the room that we'll describe a little bit later, and you'll have the opportunity to walk around to each of those. So what's the purpose of the Comprehensive Facility Master Plan? This is really the opportunity for the district to look into the future and set a roadmap and a blueprint of how they move into the future. What are some of the important components to consider? How is education shifting, and how does that affect facilities? So all of these elements help inform what this overall Comprehensive Facility Master Plan looks like. When we started some of the initial discussions with the district and the Comprehensive Facility Master Plan stakeholders, we had several ideas out on the table. And as we analyzed these, they started to fall into three categories. So up on the screen, you'll see future-ready learning, which is probably the most important category because that's all about the students, and that impacts every student every day as they move forward in their future. There's a capacity category too. So the importance of understanding facilities, how they operate now, how they should operate in the future, and how they enhance the future-ready learning that the district's implementing. Those two need to dovetail hand in hand very tightly. In the middle piece, equity, that's important as it's kind of the bridge between the two. And equity here is about equity programs across and through the district. So as we dive deep into the study of the Comprehensive Facility Master Plan, understanding how these programs stretch across the district and inform capacity within each building becomes important. I'd like to hand it over to Dr. Katie Collier. She's Associate Superintendent of Academic Services, thank you. And she's going to talk a little bit about what the district's currently working on and why we're doing this. Why is this important?
Good evening. Again, thank you for being here. Really, it's such a pleasure to be able to speak with you tonight because really in communities across our state and quite frankly across our country, there are districts all over that yearn for the level of community participation we have in our schools. And so we're appreciative that you are here beginning this conversation with us tonight. When we think about our schools, we think about the fact in our pre-K-12 system, we think about that end goal. And the end goal is that collectively, we want to all be witness to our students walking across the stage at graduation, prepared for success in their lives. So the heart of this work, as you've heard this evening, is truly about our students. What we decide together these next several months in our brainstorming, in our dialogue, it is our students who truly are the winners here. This work is about our kiddos. So tonight, I'm going to invite you to imagine to reimagine. Certainly, if you dig in your memory banks, you might likely recall a teacher from fifth hour. Maybe you remember the student that sat in front of you a year in fifth hour, or the student that invited you to jump rope for the first time, or you that remember the smell of opening your textbooks at the beginning of a school year, or you remember the tile as your feet hit the floor as you walk down the halls of your schools as you were a student. And then I ask you to pause and think about whether or not we want our students to have those memories that absolutely resemble ours, when we are actually trying to educate them for a future that many of us in this room cannot even begin to imagine. And that's this notion of educating, providing instruction under this notion of future ready. If we look at this environment here certainly isn't one that fosters collaboration. It certainly may not support the well-being of the individuals that inhabit this space throughout a day. And what we are noticing is the evolution of school and workplace environments. And school and workplace environments are changing to foster the growth and collaboration of those that inhabit these spaces. So when we think about future-ready learning, we know that we want to continue to expand options for students. Tonight, Dr. Carpenter mentioned to you that we're not talking this evening just about lines. Rather, we're inviting you this evening into a conversation, keeping in mind that sometimes walls and lines can actually hinder the learning potential for our students or even our system as a larger organization. So we want to continue to foster choices for students. And know when we think about future-ready learning, we're talking about learning anytime, anywhere. In this notion of future-ready learning, preparing our students for their futures, there should be this marriage between the physical environment that our students step into every day and the approach that we're trying to get at instructionally for our students. It's actually rather fitting that we're beginning this engagement series here at the Missouri Innovation Campus, because one of our tasks is thinking about the multiplier effect, if you will, of expanding the space experiences in learning that students in this building experience and taking that in some way to a larger scale. So we're looking for marriage between instructional philosophy and physical spaces that support that. All of our students, whether our students are in our early childhood program, whether they are seniors already counting days to graduation, whether they are a fifth grader, all students should have the opportunity to experience and have experiences that foster their curiosity, experimentation, exploration of their environment. That is what we yearn for and seek in our educational experiences for our students. And do those occur across our district? Absolutely. We have the best teachers beyond measure. We have the best students. What we want to do is create those physical learning environments that help to unbind, if you will, some of those practices they hope to employ in our classrooms every day. So we have a goal of ensuring that our students are workforce, college, career, and life ready. But U.S. business executives across the United States tell us there are skills missing. So we know school has been built for what? The 3 R's: reading, arithmetic, writing. But the business industry is suggesting to us that these are skills that are missing. They're the 4 C's for our students: critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity. And these are the skills that businesses report to us are lacking and void. They suggest today's employees need to think critically, solve problems, innovate, collaborate, and communicate effectively. We want our classrooms to be incubators of curiosity, innovation, and creativity. So we asked our students last year, students that are part of our student advisory group, and last year students in that group were 7th graders through 12th graders. And we asked them to speak to us about those things that they needed, that they felt helped them to experience enduring and powerful learning experiences. Here are some of the remarks from our students. They wanted to continue to learn time management skills. They wanted to experience independence. They want chances to continue to learn outside of school. They want to experience acceptance, safe school cultures. They want time to be creative. They want opportunities to practice. So you can see those on the board. So asking this question here, what creates powerful and enduring learning experiences, we have in our district what's referred to as the instructional operations team, the leaders of the instructional program in our school district. And that team worked, and we also talked with our building leaders about what are those conditions we believe should exist in learning. And we landed on this, what we're introducing as the instructional compass. And essentially, this can serve as a guide, our fundamental beliefs about what we believe should occur in classrooms, irregardless of age, to create powerful learning experience. This first semester, Dr. David Sharp and Dr. Jennifer Kephart, our assistant superintendents for elementary and secondary education, are working with a group to develop what we refer to as a portrait of a graduate. And that portrait of a graduate will define the skills that we desire for our students to develop as they move throughout our system, that they contain those skills when they walk across our stage. We believe these pieces here will help them develop those skills once that group defines those for us. So within this compass, I've already referenced the 4 C's that business industry tells us is absolutely vital. What does that mean for students? It shows some of you some of those examples on the screen. The students are able to consider multiple perspectives, that they're able to articulate and support their arguments, claims, and beliefs, that they're encouraged to take intellectual risks. That's what the workforce is going to demand of them. We believe that those experiences in the classroom should be authentic. Students should know the audiences for which they are producing products in our classrooms. They should understand the why behind their learning. Do these things exist in our classrooms right now across the district? Absolutely. We want to continue to foster these. We also believe that transferability is important. That students can take what they learn in chemistry and they can apply that in a different context throughout the rest of their school day. So there's more there, just giving you a feel for what these beliefs are that are in this compass. More broadly, we believe experiences matter, the choice matters for our students, that it's important for us as instructors, as educators, to listen to the feedback students to give us, as we're the architects of their learning experiences, and that for this evening, beginning that conversation, that the environment in which our students learn is absolutely critical because it certainly supports their learning. So really, to wrap this portion up, I would suggest to you that what we're talking about instructionally, what we're talking about tonight is partnership and the preparedness of our students for graduation, for life, and that it is going to take us willing to step out and imagine in order to reimagine what some of our learning spaces could be like. And as we do that, what connection then can there exist to this conversation around numbers and capacity? Because we're preparing students for their tomorrows, not our yesterdays.
Thank you, Dr. Collier. So now I'd like to invite up Kyle Durrell, who's Director of Facilities, and he's going to take us a little bit deeper into future-ready learning.
Okay, it is absolutely my pleasure tonight to talk with you all about how our facilities are going to be a part of this future-ready learning. And using the instructional compass as our backdrop, you'll find that the board priority 2, ensuring equitable access to learning environments, that's really the core of what this future-ready concept is all about. But it all does start with our students. So first thing I'd like to do is just talk you through who are our students in this district. They are a diverse group of learners. And you can see the numbers there for the 17-18 school year. We do have a fairly diverse population in our school district. 341 English learners and 30 languages spoken, which is such an amazing statistic for our district. 19% free and reduced, which is a 6% increase over the last 10 years. And we have close to 2,500 kids in this district that have some other need that has been diagnosed that they're being helped with. But we know that we prepare each student for success in life. It's not just about these kids, it's about each and every one of the kids in our buildings. And our goal here is to provide a learning environment that meets every one of their needs. So we know the generations, not all want to talk about this, but we know the kids of today, they're connected multitaskers. They want to be connected, they want to be engaged. It's an important part of who they are that we need to recognize. The problem we run into in our facilities is that our classrooms were designed 100 years ago. And we sometimes call this the forward education model because society was all about, at that time, the Industrial Revolution. And we needed assembly workers. So our schools left the one-room schoolhouse and they became assembly lines. And so, for the most part, those schools ended up looking like they needed to for industry. And so, what the assumption was there was that all students were ready to learn at the same time, at the same thing, by the same person, regardless. And that learning always happens under a teacher's control. And so our education system was really designed to educate the masses, where we're trying to take a step back and look at how it can be used to educate each individual student. And so our classrooms today still, for the most part, have the same kind of feel. So what we know is that learning is a complex interplay. It's not just about curriculum, it's not just about any one thing. It's a complex interplay between social, emotional, family life, security, so many different things in a kid's life that need to be factored in. And we have to try in this plan, in working with our consultants, to create a thoughtful approach between designing our buildings and how they have relationships to the learning environment. And this is an adaptive problem. There's not just one answer. So we can't always use the same toolkit to solve it. So the next thing we're going to discuss just briefly is what really are the students' basic needs, because that's what we're getting at. We know through Maslow's hierarchy that until we satisfy kids' basic physiological and needs for safety and security, they can't move on to advanced thinking and being able to learn. So what future-ready learning is all about is advancing up the skill level, advancing up the learning ideology in Bloom's taxonomy. We're trying to think creative learners here, promote creativity with kids. And so what we're going to be working on is creating a set of standards that meet their physiological needs, whether it's daylight, indoor air quality, acoustics, lighting, proper scale, any number of things that can be used as part of that standard. But then also there needs to feel safe and secure in their buildings, and to have a culture that really honors respect, diversity, love, security, caring, any number of concepts that we know is part of our kids' lives. So moving on, talking about creative minds for kids. Creativity is a part of our vision statement. We encourage innovation and creativity, and we need to have facilities that follow that vision. So children are born creative. We know they are. Kids can come up with ideas that amaze us all. But what popular thought is that we're educating kids out of their creative mindset through overstructured environments. So if you survey preschoolers, what are they going to say about the buildings? You know, they love it, they run into school, they're so excited to go to school. So what we're trying to figure out is why, for secondary students, does the level of creativity decline? And also, in addition to that, why does the engagement decline on surveys for secondary students? So Picasso said, every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist once we grow up. I love that quote. Got to help people try to keep that mind going. So part of how we can do that with buildings is use right brain, left brain thinking. Of course, right brain creating challenges, developing creative solutions. Left brain, more familiar challenges, and establishing routines. This isn't all about just one big free thing. It's about balancing mindset for kids. So you're going to engage both sides of the brain when we have multisensory environments. So the senses, of course, they are the gateway to the mind. And as Katie mentioned earlier, that's how we retain and recall so many of our memories is through our senses. So that is something that is a critical part of how we design our facilities into the learning environment. So color is a big part of that. We can paint with a purpose, use subtle chromatic changes. Color can have a real big impact on students' moods. Materials can be used to engage students' senses and have them remember parts of their facilities, part of their education in so many different ways. Light has so much impact on learning, whether it's indirect, diffuse, natural, or otherwise. Color temperature is also a big part of that can be used to help influence kids' education. And lighting can also be fun and creative. It can be engaging for kids and provide some interest in space. And outdoor lighting, daylighting, is such a critical part of the environment. And there's so many studies out there that show how effective that is in helping kids engage. So moving on, how's the student's body weigh into this? Physical and emotional fitness is so important because we know that students learn when they're healthy and when they feel good. And we can't take that out of the picture. And so our district has, I think, done the amazing job of creating a student wellness program. We're starting the discussion of the student wellness program and having it be a part of our culture. So there's a connection between the body and brain, and we need to make peace with fidgeting. This is the fine motor activity that involves our concentration levels. So the problem we know in space is that we're telling kids to sit down for longer than we know they can concentrate. So making peace with fidgeting is a big part of dealing with that problem. But movement also stimulates the vestibular systems. When you do gross movement, it engages parts of the brain that aren't active. And so these two sides of the brain are 20 minutes of activity difference, and then parts of the brain that get engaged. And one of the primary ways that you see movement being reinforced in buildings is through furniture, because we know comfortable kids learn. And we're kind of past the point where we think every kid should be sitting in the same little molded plastic bucket seat that we all sat in when we were kids, or some of us use a piece of wood. So, we have to come up with a furniture standard that's good for kids. Furniture needs to promote movement, keep them active, and lots of ideas that you guys have seen around this building and other buildings in the district. Furniture can be comfortable. You guys all have padded seats tonight, and it's a great thing. I know you guys would be getting crumpy if you were in hard plastic all night. So lots of great ways we can provide comfortable seating where kids can collaborate, they can get together, they can have private reflection, take care of their own individual needs. And it can be flexible. We should be providing furniture that kids can use to collaborate and do a variable amount of engagement with the building. And of course, ergonomic. We need to have furniture that fits varying student body types. Right now, we buy the same chairs for every kid of every age group, and it's really important if we want kids to be comfortable and learn that we have a furniture standard that meets their body types. Okay, so moving on to the next area, student choice. Again, as you mentioned, had heard from Katie. Free choice is an important part of the school environment because it eliminates a student's individual strengths. And kids become more engaged in their education when they have a choice of how their day is run and their educational quality. Having a variety of learning spaces facilitates this process, and again, both sides of the brain are engaged. So student ownership. Kids need to feel like these buildings are theirs. They're not ours as staff people, they're not the teachers' buildings. They're the community's buildings and they're the kids' buildings. And so we have to foster a sense of belonging so these kids know that they're there and the buildings are theirs. Part of how we've done this in the past is give them an individual organization, a home base. And that's still very important, but we need to evaluate, are these still the same types of components that are in a future-ready school and need to be used? Display fosters a sense of pride and belonging. We all have seen our grade school kids, if you have them in the room, run into school and feel that sense of pride when their work is displayed. And it's a standard that we need to have in the district. We do a great job of it, but we really need to reinforce that for our kids. And allowing kids to create space through flexibility. This is what promotes their engagement with the buildings. Let them have some control and not just have to walk down the same aisle and sit in the same row in the same desk all the time. So purposeful flexibility of space. Okay, so one final area, the cultural connection of our buildings. This is a really important aspect of this whole process, and it's one of the main reasons you guys are all here too. This is a community problem that the school is trying to engage everyone in. And so the culture of the district, it's part of our vision, and we reflect a culture of respect and acceptance. So providing and celebrating the cultural traditions, it provides individual and inclusive environments for kids. So these connections can be made through local signatures in buildings. Students can be engaged in the space. They need to feel proud of their space. And a lot of our schools do a great job of this. They find local signatures and they build it into their curriculum in the way that the space is designed. We already connect through a lot of partnerships that we'll continue to reinforce. And having this mentorship, it connects kids with different background, it connects kids with different types of people in the community, and engages everyone into the learning process. So, engaging vibrant spaces foster a sense of belonging, especially to kids at risk. We're trying to figure out why the gap in engagement and cognitive ability, it declines with lower socioeconomic and areas that are underserved. And so a lot of these concepts we're talking about can have a dramatic impact on all of those areas. So that is the segue that I'm going to offer into the why of 21st century learning or future ready learning. And this is a transition point now over to DLR Group. And they are going to walk us through some of the practical applications of how these concepts get implemented, and you'll see in the physical space. Thank you.
So my role is to kind of take some of those concepts and ideas and show you some realizations of what does that look like. It doesn't necessarily mean they're the answers for all the buildings in Lee Summit, but it does mean that it's an example of how you can do that. One of the things that we have found over the last probably 7 years as education and facilities are sort of starting to come together is that we do have to create educational spaces that are multimodal. The idea that kids all learn differently and all learn at different rates. Who said that we all should learn biology in 5 minutes and then go on to math? Because I didn't learn it in 55 minutes. So multimodal, buildings that have the ability to change, the ability to, and a lot of times that's just furniture. It doesn't mean you have to do physical things to your building too much to make that happen. And the idea of, like I said, that upper image there is of our traditional double-loaded corridor. We sometimes call them bells and cells. And we don't all, we've changed, right? Our homes, our living space, our dining rooms, our kitchens aren't individual rooms anymore. We like to be in an open space. And you can have, if you have 3 kids, you might even realize how one likes to go to their room to study, one likes to be in front of the TV with the iPad and music playing, and the other may be in the kitchen looking at you, watching you do things too. So even in our own spaces, they look like that bottom area there. You can almost see, here I'll do it up here. So you can see that's the same bells and cells building, but look how it's changed in its configuration and gives opportunity in different spaces for those kids that need to go to different spaces. So here's what high school is kind of looking like. It looks a little bit like MIC. It gives that ability to move around. In this picture, you can actually see about 4 different kinds of spaces. You've got classroom in the back that also has a slider that is connected out here. You've got space around this collaborative area, which could be a quiet space for a person or 2 people. And then you've actually got space on the other side of that. So you've got that ability for students to stretch out and get a little bit excited about where they're at. Spaces don't have to be a classroom anymore with 4 walls. And the idea that these are middle school students, and one of the things that we're finding a lot of is that if you treat middle schoolers, give them space that they realize is for them and that is a little bit more than just an educational building. They feel as though these spaces look a little bit different than that. And I know that it's really difficult to imagine a 6th and 7th grader who we'd really rather send to Mars are actually out in an area of this type. Again, a middle school where there's multiple changes in that kind of space. That's all existing building. And then the elementary school where you do have the ability, we do have to control them just a little bit more. We do have to have that classroom environment, but we also give them the ability to be a little bit more creative. The other day, it was really exciting. We went to one of the elementary schools, brand new elementary media center. They were all grouped around a teacher in one corner, and then she let them loose and they actually ran. I'm not going to tell them what elementary school this was. But they actually ran to the really cool new furniture and spaces so they could collaborate with their teams. So, and then as we have been working in the world of future-ready learning, this is a kindergarten center, 600 kindergartners in a school district. We followed them around and started to realize that we were moving 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds around this building for long distances, taking a lot of time for movement. What we found is that we could literally bring back about 30 minutes of a day if we brought every service to them. And so that kindergarten center now has gained 2 weeks of educational time. It's an incredible amount of time that teachers don't have to be herding cats. So,
Thank you, Kevin. So, hopefully that gave you a little better understanding of this whole future-ready learning concept that the district is embarking on. As we transition into the next section, which will be demographics and capacity, I will note that the presentation you're seeing will be uploaded to the website. So all this information will be available, so sorry I didn't mention that earlier, but it will be available towards the end of the week, especially as we move into the demographics piece. So buckle up, because there will be a fair amount of charts that you guys will have to look at and understand. So with that, I'm going to ask Rick Bramer to join us. He's with Applied Economics, and he's been working with the district for many years, and I will let him take it from here.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see all your faces. I will repeat something that I heard early on, which I work for school districts across the country, and you don't really see this kind of involvement in a lot of places. And they told me how many people were going to be here. I said, nah, it's not going to happen. But you all came. And that is a statement about these summits. It's one of the things I really like about your community. I've been coming here for 16 years to do this kind of work specifically. So I'm not quite a native, but I certainly do feel at home when I come here, and I don't need a map to find my way around town. So we have a solid demographic program, I would call it, that we've been doing over that period of time. Our company, my company, has been in business for about 23 years. I've been doing this type of work for school districts, for cities and towns, for transportation planning organizations for about 30 years. Had my own firm for 23 years. I've worked for about 50 different school districts during that period of time. Everything from demographics to enrollment projections to things like this, supporting boundary planning and facility location type of efforts. And what we do for the district is the same program we've basically been doing for 16 years. And we specialize, we look at enrollment trends, the grade level distribution, in particular the geographic distribution, which is actually a challenge that you all are really facing at this point. Obviously the demographics of the population itself, another challenge for these summit. You're aging rapidly right now. The household structure, well, okay, I'm aging rapidly too, but that's a whole other thing, I suppose. I mean, particularly what we're looking at it for is the age of the household. If I know the age of the householder, I can very accurately predict how many students that we're going to get out of that household. And so that's one of the key elements, along with, in the past, at least residential development in the community. Like I said, I've been here long enough to see it go through some really pretty impressive growth. I wouldn't call it out of control, but at some point it certainly felt like that. But we do a thorough inventory of active projects, projects that are proposed that aren't even out in the public yet, pre-applications that we look at from the cities and towns, and then who's going to live in those houses. And that's a lot about the size of the unit, the type of the unit, how much it costs. And one of the things we're really looking at right now, which is new to the summit, is the influx of multifamily apartments coming into the community, which is a kind of a new thing for this area. And it does generate fewer kids on a per unit basis. But if you build 30 per acre, it turns out that it generates about the same number of students per acre as a single family subdivision. So it can be a factor that we have to look at. And we do two models. We do a district level macroeconomic top down. How does the summit fit into Jackson County, into the state of Missouri? What is your goal? What's the longer term perspective? We also do a bottom level, I would call it neighborhood level, sub-district is what it says on here. So bottom up, where's your neighborhood at? And every neighborhood in the community is literally in a different place in its evolutionary life cycle. And we need to take that into account when we're looking at the enrollment projections. And then, like we said, we're here to do support efforts to look at facilities and attendance areas and all the planning that goes with that. We use a system of geographies. I'm just going to educate everybody right now about what this is. And it's I call them grids. We divide the district into 170 different planning areas or neighborhoods, really is what I'm trying to get at. And the thing about these areas is that we don't change these over time, even when attendance areas have changed. So I've actually been through 3 boundary changes with Lee Summit in the past. These don't change. And I know how many students by grade lived in each one of these red boxes for the last 16 years. So I can track exactly where, like again, is it old students, young students, is it getting ready to roll over, is it aging out? And all the data that we collect not only for the district, but for each of these 170 areas. And like I said, those stay unchanged over time. So what do some of the numbers look like? This is just total district K-12 enrollment. The blue bars are key to the left axis, which is the number of students. The squiggly green line is the percentage increase or decrease year over year. As you can see, through about 2006, the district experienced incredibly robust growth. It took a pause during the recession, just like every place else that I've seen. And since then has made somewhat of a recovery, but you'll see right away, and we'll get back to it again, is that the enrollment growth we have doesn't look anything like the housing growth we have. A lot more houses being built than what these increases in enrollment would lead you to believe, and we're going to see why that's the case. I would say that since I've been doing it, there's only one down year though. I mean, there was 1 year where we lost 80 students, but that's the only time in 30 years that the district's actually lost students. One of the key factors is, again, that distribution of kids by age and their grade levels. And this chart is what it does is it shows how many students are in each grade by group. So the K2 line is students in the kindergarten, first and second grades, the number of students per grade, okay? And what happens is you go through a cycle, the evolution of your community. And you can see when houses were being built and they were cheaper, the red line is on top. The biggest group, literally, grade by grade, was the K2 group. And then as the neighborhoods begin to age and the rate of development slows, what you see is now the 9 through 12 is the biggest group on a per grade basis. And that's the maturation of the district. It's also been exacerbated here because of their housing prices. This is a move-up housing market, and every time we see housing prices go up, we all feel good about it, but it priced someone else out of our neighborhood, and particularly the younger kids. So we do see still a little bit of growth. You'll notice the difference between the 3rd to 5th grade group and the K2 group. The K2 group really hasn't grown basically since 2005, 2006. Really has not changed. In addition to, like I said, looking at districts level stuff, we look at the sub-district, at the micro level. And so what we do is we get a record from the district of each student, no names, but can geocode them, put them on a map, and then I can correlate who is going, how many kids are getting out of each neighborhood compared to the characteristics of the housing in that neighborhood. So each one of these purple dots is a student enrolled in these Summit schools. And the only other thing that I will mention here that is an interesting factoid about the distribution of students, obviously it's concentrated here in the center of the district, but you've got a challenge, and you're going to hit it when you get to the facilities part, when you're looking at planning, is that there's a large property holding here. Property Reserve Incorporated, the Mormon Church, owns several thousand acres of land right in the middle of your district. And so what you can see that growth has done is it's had to leapfrog over that, because that property is not for sale, at least it isn't right now. But we have then a separation. And that creates real difficulty when you start trying to draw those lines that no one wants to draw. It's just something to kind of file away in the back of your mind. But it's an extra challenge that we're kind of facing. I said I had the number of students that come out of each one of these boxes, every year. So if you just were to look at the last 5 years through the lens of that 170 sub-areas, everywhere on this map with blue has lost students during that period of time. So we have some fairly significant enrollment declines in the heart of the district as their kids are aging out, but people aren't moving. People are living longer, they're staying in their house longer, and they can't afford another one, so they're staying in longer, especially in this community. That's a good thing in a way. It creates a lot of stability, but it doesn't bring you new kids. And so you see where the growth has been, where the new housing is going, like in Chapman Farms or down in Greenwood at Woodland Trails or Eagle Crest or, these areas, I'm trying to forget one out there, but that's where you see the red on the map, is generally where the housing has been built. And that's where the enrollment's increasing, but it's offset, to a great extent. We'll get back to that a little bit in a minute. I talked about looking at residential development, and this is just the number of units permitted by year in the district, the blue bar being the single-family units and the green being multi-family units, which includes not only apartments, but duplexes and stuff also are counted in those green bars. And so you can see during the pit of the recession, we fell, from the district doing consistently well over 1,000 units per year down to about 180, I think is about where we bottomed out, all single family. And we've had growth, we've had recovery in that single family market. You can see the blue bars are getting taller, but the growth isn't there. And one of the reasons why the growth isn't there is because your housing market isn't diverse. Like I said, it's move up and it's high end. What we're missing is an entry level component, and that leaves out a whole part of the market also. So your rate of growth is actually still way below what it used to be, even in terms of single family. And then the green bar on top, this new reality of having to think about multifamily projects. And multifamily projects are harder for me than single family projects because I can tell you who's going to live in a house pretty accurately. With apartments, they tend to be either you've got quite a few kids for you back now, and you don't sometimes know which it's going to be until the people show up and run. Some of them are built with playgrounds and so forth, and so you know it's going to have kids. But that isn't always the case. But anyway, we do a land inventory then, like I mentioned, of where development could happen in the future. And so this is a little hard to read, I understand, but there's several hundred polygons here where I'm tracking pieces of land that have some sort of development potential. Yellows are single family, red is commercial development. We want to know what's going to be there, what's not going to be there. Just the inventory that we have assembled, which I want to point out, does leave out some land in the northeast and the southwest corner. The district that could have much longer term development potential. But just the stuff I'm looking at right now has the potential for 25,000 housing units to be added to the district. That's 60% of the current inventory. So there's definitely, still plenty of growth potential. It's just how fast is it going to happen, and what are the people that move in going to look like? And those projects, those additions, they tend to be concentrated into bigger projects. I rattled through a few of them earlier, but development infrastructure has become incredibly expensive, and so the only way that builders can make it work is to be some part of some larger project. So the vast majority of the housing additions that we're going to see, at least in the near term, are in these purple boxes, regardless of what all the other colors are on the map. So what does it all add up to? Well, this chart shows the population in total housing units going back to clear back to 2010. And so last year, we haven't done the 18-19 update yet, but as of last year, there were about 98,000 people in the district. We should top 100,000 people living in the school district this year. We can see the historical number of units that have been added per year, and then my projections, which call for the addition of about 7,700 housing units over a 10-year period, which would be an increase over where we've been, but nowhere near where the district peaked, during the heyday of growth. The big difference is the split. So of that number, 35% are looking like they're going to be multi-family housing units and not single-family housing units. And that is going to change the demographics of the district as we go forward. And it's something to keep in mind. But those housing units, along with the age characteristics of the population, are what we use to project enrollment. How many housing units are occupied, and what's the age of the person in it? And I get the age of the person in it by looking at the value of the house and the type of the house. So what does it mean in terms of enrollment? Well, it means that over the next 10 years, we could add about 1,800 students, according to the math, which looks at student generation in terms of how many persons aged 5 to 17 live in the district, whether you go to school or any school. And then we compare that to what the district K-12 enrollment has been. And there's a difference. And you know, your capture rate, your service rate, about 90%, 89 to 90% of the school-aged persons in the district attend a district school. The rest are parochial schools, or homeschool, you know, and on down the line. And that number is continuing to expand. The number of educational alternatives does continue to expand. And homeschooling, it's not a big factor, but it's growing. And it does have an impact on enrollment. So we're going to build 7,700 housing units, and we're only going to get 1,800 students. That's about 0.25, 24 per housing unit. Whereas you can see right now, the average is about 0.487. The difference is because a lot of the aging that's going on is pulling kids out while we're putting them in with the new construction. So you get a balance out of it. In the projections, I've got 2 5-year periods here where we use the same map to show, again, the next 5 years, all the blue areas is where we can say that there's going to be continued losses in enrollment in the district. And some of them aren't large, but it's not going to grow either. The red areas are where we expect to see the enrollment increases. And this area in the heart of the district, I kind of count the heart of the district, has been aging rapidly. I think it will for about the next 5 years, but after that, I think we kind of hit a plateau. And in fact, in the second 5-year period, I think we see some of those neighborhoods start to turn around just a little bit. And we'll get a few more of the younger kids back as people like me finally move off to the great reward or something. But anyway, so the pattern of enrollment is very important. And what I end up giving to the district is, and I know there's a lot of numbers up here, but is the projected then enrollment by school by year. And there's a difference here that's kind of important for everybody to just know, is that I really look at attendance areas. So I take the area where the kids are supposed to attend from to the school, and I add that up. But in reality, there's a difference. And this column here shows you that there is a difference. So because of some of the programs to offset equity and poor performance in some of the schools, they flex. And so, for instance, Prairie View has 99 more students at the school than live in its area. And then you can see Meadow Lane is the opposite, where they're basically taking 67 students out of that area and they're going to a different school. So we do have a little bit of movement, but the other thing, the rest of this chart, the coloring up to here anyway, just means if it's blue, it's little, and if it's red, it's big. If it's getting bluer, it's getting smaller. If it's getting redder, it's getting bigger. But and we don't need to dwell through all of these numbers at all, but the ones that I look at most really are the 12 to 17. So if we looked at that last 5 years, and again, 25 students in the elementaries. In the addition, it's only been 25 students in the last 5 years. Middle school, about 192, and almost 300 at the high school. So literally 3/4 of the enrollment increase over the last 5 years has been at the high school level, and it's only one high school that's growing right now. I do think we'll see more growth in the north down the road, but in the interim in the next 5 years, it's going to continue to basically be the case, where most of the enrollment increase that we're expecting is going to be in the west area. So you can read those numbers across, and there won't be a test, I promise. I mean, these are just a lot of numbers, but you hope you will have a chance at a different time to look and sit and look through this and realize that there's some pretty big size differences. And there's also some schools in the last 5 years, like Prairie View has even though they're flexing kids in to some extent, they've lost 120 some odd students in the last 5 years. Enrollment's actually 120 less.
You analyze tax revenue. This enormous increase in multifamily houses, like the lack of tax revenue. You have added those numbers in.
In terms of tax revenue?
Yeah.
I don't really consider the tax revenue implications. I am very concerned about the age profile of who lives in, and some of the apartments that were just built up in Northland, or actually in Kansas City, built 144 units with playgrounds, and we got 4 kids out of that apartment complex. And that's why I'm saying you never really know with multifamily who's going to move in. But your community right now has had such incredible success with economic development and creating jobs that it's workforce housing that we're really looking for. And since there's nothing affordable, the multifamily becomes the workforce housing. So that's the biggest impact for me, you know, what I look at. I think enrollment's going to continue to grow, but in the near term, it's probably still going to be more at the upper end, the upper grades. That could reverse itself a little bit, not in so much in the first 5 years, but in the second 5 years. But a lot of the increase from that is going to be offset by the aging of the population. But the district's future is very bright. You know, there's nothing to expect in the future but growth, really. It's just a matter of who and when. And right now, the problem is that there's, in the distribution of the students and the distribution of the seats aren't in sync with each other. It's not that there's not enough seats. That's it.
Thank you. So you caught all that, right? You got it memorized. It's all stored up here. Perfect. So I just wanted to touch briefly on this map. The design team is really using this as a tool. So as we start to analyze some of Rick's data that he shared, we start to overlay that with some of the schools, and that informs us where they are from a capacity standpoint, whether it's related to programs, it's related to student count, or it's related to other demographic issues. So you'll see this map often, and it's somewhat of a living document. So as we start to overlay additional information onto this map, there will be numbers that ebb and flow a little bit. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Corey Brambuger with Link Strategic Partners. They're our partner group here that is going to lead the rest of the conversation this evening. So hopefully everybody's had a chance to fill out their comment cards, because that's really going to lead into this next piece of the conversation.
Hi, everyone. I know everyone who's come up has said thank you for coming tonight, but I want to reiterate that. Thank you for coming out tonight. It's really awesome to see everybody here. It's a testament to the care and insight that you can bring to this process, and I hope you'll engage with us throughout the process, throughout the fall. I want to start by just kind of going over what the process looks like this fall. We started engagement in August, and clearly we're in September now. And we're right now working to inform you of the data behind the process, what the CFMP looks like, what that process looks like, and what the purpose of the CFMP is, and the sort of the lay of the land, as Rick's presentation put it. The online survey that we're conducting right now is meant to get your vision and your insights based on the information that you're here tonight, and the information that you see on the website. There's a CFMP website that Kelly will talk about in a moment, where all the information is. We hope that you'll take that information and you'll give us your care and your insights into what your vision for your schools are. Right now, we're clearly in engagement series 1, so we're getting everybody's vision and everything. We've got the survey live through Monday. So take your time after tonight, think about everything that you've heard. And then I hope you'll weigh in via the community survey, weigh in via the exit survey and that as well. We'll go into October when DLR Group and Gould Evans will issue their first sort of preliminary set of recommendations based on all the input that we gather through this initial series of engagement. So we'll work on October 8th through 11th to do another set of meetings that will be more conversation oriented around what the recommendations are and how you feel about them, and we'll take those reactions, and the DLR Group and Gould Evans will take that feedback also from an online survey. Similar format will end the Monday after the series is over, and they'll issue a refined set of recommendations that will inform the overall CFMP, which will be issued toward the end of the semester. The way that we're going to structure here tonight is we're going to thank you for submitting your questions via comment cards. We're going to read out the questions. It's going to take about 30 to 45 minutes to read out as many questions as we can. And we've got a panel of folks who will address those questions, folks from the district, folks from the consultant team. And then we're going to invite you to step out in the hallway, and we've got a gallery walk. We've got sets of boards around with a lot of the information that you heard here tonight, as well as some feedback boards if we'd like some more insight. As I mentioned, you guys are the experts in your community and in what you want to see through your schools. It's really awesome to have you out here tonight. There's a long arc of engagement through this process, and we hope that you'll engage in every form of feedback that we've got here tonight, as well as throughout the series. As I mentioned, there's an online survey through every series. We've got the conversation here tonight. There will be conversational elements through each series. We've got the exit surveys, which will allow us to improve on how we're conducting the meetings every series. And we'll likely have gallery walk stations at every series as well. So additionally, finally, email us, call us, and call the district, ask questions. We want everyone to be engaged throughout this process. Additionally, feedback reports will be posted to the CFMP website. Kelly will talk about the website.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. It was really our intent for this first portion of the evening to be educational for you, to get some information, look at the numbers, look at the data, and digest that as we go into the rest of this fall. You'll hopefully have already visited our CFMP website. If not, the address is right there. It is a repository for wonderful information for you, from videos to engagement series dates to online survey links. This is where we will post all of the presentations after this week. We'll post all of our video from each of the nights to this webpage as well. We'll post our survey results here and have a repository of information for you to access whenever you need. We're really excited to have this for you as something that kind of logs our process and documents our process as we go through this fall. One thing I wanted to say too, for this slide, we on our a survey that you've taken, online survey that was on the 17th, we've had almost 3,800 respondents. So it's a wonderful number of respondents. You really are engaged, and we appreciate your feedback, and it's a wonderful testament to what you guys do and what you care about in this community as it relates to our schools. The next slide is about stakeholders. So this is really the outlook of what we want to have in this process. There's a lot of people involved in this process, from community to students, Board of Education, to leadership teams, to instructional operations team, to teachers, DLR, there's a CFMP team that's working as a core team to help form and usher this process through the fall. We have the next portion of our evening that we're going to move into, where we can answer your questions that were provided on those comment forms. Before we do that, though, it was important to us that we had some student voice involved in the process. So we asked some of our kids some of the same questions that we're going to pose to you throughout the process. And we want to show you what the kids had to say before we start your conversation.
we all have the opportunities to succeed and make to the next level. I think it's just a matter of realizing those opportunities and taking advantage of them.
This is here for you. I mean, this is people are don't have these opportunities, and you get them.
The school district offers so many other things. Like you can go to Herman, you can go to Summit Tech, you can go to MIC.
I like how a lot of responsibility has been given to kids, you know, because there's clubs and things that are run by students, and it really sets them up with those leadership skills, which they're going to need later in life.
to really learn, you have to have a certain level of vulnerability and a willingness to make a mistake in front of others.
I think to learn and to really like strive to be the greatest, like you have to put yourself out there and you have to be willing to try and fail.
Making mistakes as yourself has to start with accepting others' mistakes. Like, it all begins with you. Yeah.
I think I know what you're about to say.
Okay, are you about to say it? Because I'm sorry, you go. You say it.
Because I think that we shouldn't really worry so much about grades like we do, because if we're really learning something, the grades are going to reflect that. So I think we should focus on the learning portion rather than saying, like, busy work and stuff just to fill the grade books. Can we not do that anymore? Yeah.
We're all part of the Summit, so we're all in a similar type of position. There are rivalries like on and off the field or on and off the court or like in debate or intense. It doesn't matter like what you like play or what you do, like there are going to be those rivalries. I mean, as for me, I don't hate Wes off the court. Like they live in the same town as me. Like I like them. Like they're my fellow members of the Summit.
I think it'd be awesome, like you said, to collaborate with all the other schools.
Yeah.
We and I have gotten together, like in functions like district choir or All-State choir and stuff like that. It's just like another like pocket of people to hang out with, and there's so much in common. Like while there are those divisions, I just feel like the things that tie us together at our own schools can just as easily tie us together at different schools. Yeah.
I want students to be able to express themselves for who they want to be, not who they should be. I feel that once you express yourself without people judging you, and you go with the fact that everyone's different, I think that's going to go greatly for everyone.
I just want future kids of this Summit to know that it's all right to fail. Like I feel like that's the only way you really learn. Like you learn from your mistakes, and that's how you get better. And to me, I feel like that's really a major part of like the only way to get better is to fail and get back up and realize that it's okay to be wrong.
I want kids to learn while having fun and making relationships with their teachers and like having their teachers as like their best friends.
I think something that'd be cool to see, like we talked about it the whole time, is the interconnectedness in between the 3 schools, or 3 areas, I guess.
And let's start making new friends, like
What's just like 10 minutes?
Yeah,
It's like that. It seems like it's an honest.
Oh, wow.
No road.
As I mentioned, we're going to transition into the question part of the evening, so thank you again for submitting your questions. I'd like to invite everybody who is on our panel to answer questions to come up here. Rather than sitting behind the table, I think everybody, if you don't mind standing, I'd love if you could make this a little bit more informal, and then you can just pass the mic back and forth.
Is there a place for those of us that haven't submitted that?
Yeah. Thank you. So as I mentioned, we're going to spend about 30 to 45 minutes doing this. Josh here is going to read off the questions. We're going to get to as many as we can, and as I mentioned earlier, all the questions that are submitted tonight will be answered on the CFMP website within the next week, so please make sure to check back and view the answers then.
You got them, just raise them up and we'll collect it by you. So we'll start with a big picture question that I think may be a review, but good reminder for all of us. What is the CFMP and why are we doing it?
Wow, that is a great question. I don't know how I hear this one, but the difficult part of this question is that this really has 2 primary aspects. One you guys know so well, and that is it's about dealing with the capacity and the growth of the school district. And so we know that, that's a good thing. The other part of the CFMP, though, where the board has asked us to step back and take a broader look, is to evaluate what our schools really need to look like in the future, what a future-ready school looks like. And so that's something that is unique to Lee Summit. I don't know of any school districts around, and even through DLR, that are really trying to do both of these things at the same time and to be as thoughtful about the process as we are. Because there can be some impact. Capacity in buildings for future-ready learning can have some impact on the capacity that we're trying to plan for. So I hope that gives you a quick enough explanation of what CFMP is.
So another question, what schools or districts statewide and nationally do we look up to or lean on for an example of success in a CFMP?
I think locally, we look to Blue Valley, Park Hill. Those are some of the other school districts that we compare ourselves to. There's the big five that we often frequently refer to: Park Hill, Blue Springs, Liberty, North Kansas City. So that's in the local metropolitan area. But I think what we're trying to do through this process is push beyond the KC metro area and look to see what other regions of the Midwest or even nationally, where should we be going, and how do we really look at facility planning through the eyes of instruction. And I think we have to keep going back to that. It's really just not about seats and chairs. It's really what are the instructional needs and how can we get there.
How do you envision questions of energy use playing into facilities discussion? Are you looking at all into LEED standards or renewable energy sources or things like that?
We have always factored in energy efficiency into our designs and have counted up LEED points. We've been very close in many of our facilities, all of the modern facilities in points. But from our perspective, we have not chosen to spend the money on certification and on some of those additional LEED points that are out there. So this district has been really at the forefront of energy efficiency design in the metro and in the region. We were just over $1 a square foot for our electric cost for the district, which is really an amazing number. We have done a number of energy efficiency projects over the last 10 to 15 years that have really been leading in the educational industry.
This next question is about boundaries specifically, and Emily, Dr. Miller, I'm going to answer this. If you change boundaries, do you know now what those boundaries would be, and would they affect each grade level, including juniors and seniors? When would it be announced? There's a couple in regards to boundaries. So boundaries change due to the CFMP. When would those be known? So the question's about the timing of when boundaries, things of that nature.
Sure. At this point, we are not in a position to, that's not how we elected to approach this work. So we have taken a very different approach this time around. We really wanted to engage the community and really begin the work with an open mind. If you notice, if you took the survey, we asked very broad questions. Do you have interest in us pursuing boundaries? Do you have interest in us looking at renovations, additions, new buildings, and really try to get a sense of what the community is wanting and looking for as we start craft some of our recommendations. So as Dr. Carpenter mentioned at the very beginning, the subsequent series, we will start to have rough recommendations that will kind of move into something that's more of a final product that hopefully by the end of first semester we'll have a better idea and can establish some timelines.
So Dr. Miller, along those same lines, the next questions revolve around the area of grandfathering in the event that boundaries do change. Would any grade level be grandfathered in? Would my child be grandfathered in at current school? Can you answer that question as well?
And I think those are all determinations that will be forthcoming. So we imagine probably at the end of first semester that we'll have some pretty good ideas in regards to that.
Good, thank you, Dr. Miller. This might be for Rick. These are about the data that we're seeing on the slides. Is the data on a few of these slides going to be unpacked in further discussion? And what do we need to, what has caused such a huge explosion in multifamily? Can you address those questions?
Sure, I guess so. The multifamily is really, as I said, it's a response of the market to the workforce housing that's needed in the community. The economy, job growth has outpaced your housing growth for the last several years. And with it being a move-up housing market, there's a lot of people that simply can't afford to live here who want to. And then the Cerner facility up off of 470 has just brought in thousands and thousands of new jobs to the area in general. So I think it's really economic development that's driving the multifamily growth, along with the affordability. What was the other part of that? I'm sorry.
I think the question was an opportunity to unpack the data, explore the data a little bit more.
You can have my notebook right now. I think that we will expose more and more data through the process, but in a situation like this, it's really easy, and I may have done it already, to just overwhelm people with numbers. So I think the presentation will be available. I'm going to be here to answer questions. And I'm sure they will roll out data, but I think you do that incrementally as it supports the rest of the program that you're trying to do.
Yes, all of the slides that you did see up here that were probably hard to read, some of you will be available online after the engagement series this week. So we definitely encourage you to go back and refer to those, look at your own specific school, look at your neighborhood, and take a closer look at those data numbers as you can on the website. Good question. This question is about solutions. Will solutions be long-term? Example, I'd hate for kids to have to move twice if growth continues, for example.
So yes, the CFMP is intended to have both short-term and medium-term solutions. So we could develop a plan that's 5 to 10 years. So in an effort to avoid what Kevin mentioned.
Thanks, Dr. Miller. These next two questions are kind of about capacity, a little bit about programming. So was there a growth in the number of pre-K students this year? And is there a space in all elementary schools for a pre-K room? Dr. Kephart, maybe is that a question that you can address? Was there a growth in the number of pre-K students this year? And is there space in all elementary schools for a pre-K room?
So our pre-K programs are programs that really have set number of spaces. So not seeing a large growth in those programs because of the numbers that we can only have. As far as being in all of our schools, we don't have programs in all of our schools, and depending on capacity of each of our schools, if we were to have a room in every school right now, we would not have the ability to do that. So part of that work is having those conversations about our pre-K programs as well.
The only thing that I'll add relative to pre-K, Dr. Kephart, is the fact that we are seeing an increase in the number of kids who would benefit from pre-K services. We just have a set number of slots. So there is some increase in the district around students who are on a waiting list, if you will, and would like to qualify for pre-K services.
And it may be helpful to know that we don't have a pre-K classroom in every elementary school. However, we've got 2 classrooms at Meadow Lane Elementary, 1 classroom at Westview Elementary, and 4 early childhood classrooms at Trail Ridge Elementary. So when you think Great Beginnings is already at capacity, so when we start to look at programs, early education and the opportunities there is something that we're going to really have to consider.
Dr. Sharp, this question is most likely for you. It's my understanding that Lee Summit High School's enrollment has dropped while Lee Summit West High School is at capacity. Knowing boundary changes may move some students from Lee Summit West to Lee Summit High School, what will be done to ensure that Lee Summit High School has resources necessary?
Excellent question, and thank you for that. I believe that's probably one of the intended purposes is why we're here. As you look for that and everything that we talked about with the CMFP and everything that we talked about from Katie's vision, through Rick's vision, through Kyle's vision, through Kevin's vision and everything that we talked about, specifically each school that would be impacted potentially in the future is going to have to be addressed to make sure that it's equitable in all shapes or form, whether it be classroom, whether it be hallway, whether it be athletic facilities, whatever that access may need to be. Yes, if that's what comes to fruition. Remember, we're in phase 1. So now we collect the vision as to look like to what that would look like to make that fit on the short side of that.
Thank you. This question is, I love this question. It might be good to know who is attending these meetings. So So we wanted to do a quick poll of the room. So by a show of hands, if you're comfortable, could you identify yourself as a parent? Are the parents in the room? Great, good. Good. How about business owner, business member, people who work in the community? Great, great. How about retirees? Hi, Judy. Parent of former students? Parents of former students. Great, good, okay. Any other ones that we might have missed that demographically would identify you differently than what we just named? Teachers, employees, teachers? Lots of teachers. Okay.
Former students?
Former students? Are you a former student? Former students. Okay, good. Good. Okay, thanks. I appreciate the snapshot of who's in the audience today. That's great. Thank you for the question as well. All right, this question, will there be more learning opportunities for students who are consistently meeting the standard for their grade, but also testing above their grade level? Great question. Will there be more learning opportunities for students who are consistently meeting the standard for their grade, but also testing above their grade level?
I will assist in answering that too. Our mission is to ensure that each child is prepared for life. And so one of our responsibilities is to look at how we're meeting the needs of all of our students. And with that, looking at programming for all of our students in order to meet their needs. So while that programming, if you will, isn't necessarily a stated objective of the CFMP, it's a natural outflow of this work when we talk about programs that exist in our facilities, etc.
Thank you, Katie. Is there a plan to update Chromebooks from the one-to-one rollout? Good question. Is there a plan to update Chromebooks from the one-to-one rollout? Dr. Miller, thank you.
This is really Dr. Gates' question.
Dr. Gates,
So Chromebooks are on a 4-year cycle, and so they're coming to an end. So we have a process that we'll be going through that to review the Chromebooks this coming school year.
Great. This question is a little bit about this evening and the role of this evening. So LSR 7 and UCM built MIC without this public input and created the future learning environment. So why the large rollout of this discussion? Again, LSR 7 and UCM built MIC without this public input and created the future learning environment. So why the large rollout of this discussion?
Yeah, I think the opportunity for large community engagement, when you look at the capacity needs across the district, the future ready needs across the district, it has the ability to touch multiple schools, thus the need for widespread community engagement.
I was involved in the process in developing this facility, and it really started out of a need that was brought forth through leases that were expiring, as simple as that sounds, over at the building across the street, and UCM and us both had leases expiring. Opportunities arose at the same time for business partners. The MIC program needed more space, and so the collaborative nature of that program and of all of the programs in using this, and the vision of UCM too through Dr. Ambrose, it really drove the way this facility looks. And so really the innovative nature of the programs themselves is what drove the physical space that you see. And so what we're hoping is that through further discussion, collaborative learning environments, flexible learning, future-ready learning, whatever we call it, it's just learning that's good for every kid, regardless of their need, their background, their strengths, their weaknesses, whatever it is. Just a learning environment that can be flexible enough to engage those kids and meet their educational needs.
Thank you, Kyle. This question is about teachers. Teachers are on the front line balancing many different students at different skill sets, their parents, their peers, administration. How much input will they be able to give to this process? And will they be held accountable, and should they be paid accordingly?
So teachers are encouraged to participate in the surveys, in the community engagement series. We've got a number of teachers here this evening. We also have the League of Innovative Educators that will also be a focus group for this process. So we'll be hearing directly from teachers and getting direct feedback. So again, we encourage them every step of the way to join our parents and our students in this discussion.
Can I add to that just a little bit? That's my favorite question so far, because you mentioned teachers. Teachers, without a doubt, are the lifeblood of what we do. And if you look at each of our schools, there's teacher leadership teams that are imperative to what principals are doing. And you can't teacher-proof anything. So it's one of those things that I know that each leadership team and each principal has leadership team and teachers that are a key part of that to help with that. So that's a great question.
Additionally, we will be using our administration as focus groups, many focus groups, to ask principals and some of those teacher leaders what they think about the process and what their input would be. So, like Dr. Church said, it's very important to us that we include a lot of stakeholders and a lot of people internally who work with us. Their voice is important in this process as well. Thank you for the question. This question, should we be asking our Lee Summit government and development leaders to aid in creating more diverse and equitable demographics? Again, should we be asking our Lee Summit government and development leaders to aid in creating more diverse and equitable demographics? I don't know if that's a Rick or a Kevin or a Smith.
It's very, very difficult.
It's a challenging question, and I appreciate the ask. It's a difficult question, and I appreciate the ask. Should we be asking our Lee Summit government and development leaders to aid in creating more diverse and equitable demographics?
It's incredibly difficult to create a demographic. Now, we do see a lot of efforts in the cities that I work with that are in a similar position. Scottsdale, Arizona is another move-up market. And there is a focus for affordable housing, and there are certain set-asides that you can create in some cases, so that for every 10 houses you build over $500,000, you have to build one that's under 250. So I've seen some of those kind of things be instituted, but at the same time, you're talking about personal property rights. And you really can't tell people to do with their land what you want them to do. It's really up to them. So I think it's a goal. I think having a workforce housing, I think having some kind of set-aside might be a good thing just for the health of the community. But I've never really seen it where you can go out and paint your demographic. I just haven't seen that.
Ms. Smith, I have those questions for you in the level of student services. As we increase levels of technology, how does the district see their role in dealing with bullying? Our high schooler had to transfer to get away from her bullies. This needs to be continued to be addressed. The social aspect of being adults under the wellness column.
Well, under wellness, we do have a bullying policy first and foremost, and then we do have a process in which bullying is addressed. And I would definitely encourage any parent who has experienced a bullying incident that they deem appropriate to please contact your principal or even student services. And if that parent is willing to speak with me tonight, I would like to engage in an opportunity to address whatever concerns that they still may have. But we don't tolerate bullying for any of our students. And so our policy, we have well-being support from student services in which we actually teach what about bullying we should not be doing, and we teach the behavior of acceptance. And so please, if there's a parent in this room and that card is you, I encourage you, if you want to discuss that further, please, I would love to speak with you after this.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. This question relates specifically to DLR and Gould Evans. This is about the consultants who were here this evening. What criteria was used when hiring both DLR and Gould Evans consulting and architecture groups, and when were they brought into the process?
Our board policy requires that for our consultant service agreements, we issue an RFP that's advertised. We collect those RFPs, and then we we have to score them based on certain criteria. So it's things like job experience, personnel, project approach, responsiveness to the RFP. So typically what happens is a team gets together, they score the written proposals, select the highest group, and then invites that group in for a formal interview process. And so we then had a formal interview process where they came and presented. We had a core planning team with some community members on it. Judy's here tonight, and I apologize if any of the other members, if I've missed you. And we selected Dual Evans as a team. So.
That's great. Thank you for the response, Kyle. We would also add that as we approach this process, and through my understanding, is that this is really leading edge work that our district is embarking upon. And it was important to us to have these facilitators and consultants walk side by side with us so that we send out the best professional experience in collaboration with these teams. We also wanted to offer that Link, DLR, and Will Evans will be here this evening during our gallery portion, and they're very eager to meet you and happy to engage with you if you have further questions for them specifically in their roles about professional work related to the district. Good. This question, what is the district considering when it comes to making schools look more alike in quotes, when current areas around some schools are 98% Caucasian? Again, what is the district considering when it comes to making schools look more alike when current areas around some schools are 98% Caucasian? Ms. Smith, that's great.
So read that one more time.
Yep. What is the district considering when it comes to making schools look more alike when current areas around some schools are 98% Caucasian?
So I can tell you 2 months into this position in the East Summit School District, we have an instructional plan with 3 goals. Number 1, obviously, is student achievement, and part of that is goal 3, which is equity, right? So equity means access for all students, no matter demographics, such as race, such as socioeconomic status, such as gender, family background, or ethnicity. And creating the work of equity will be an all-in district-wide rollout in terms of how we meet the needs of a diverse student body. And so we're aligning access and opportunity with talents of our students. And so engaging in this conversation and having you be a part of this process and envisioning what spaces look like for schools, part of that is equitable programming and resources for all of our kids.
Thank you, John. Thank you. This question is about well-being. With the talk of well-being, is any consideration being given to moving the start time of the middle and high school to be more appropriate for adolescents, i.e. they're tired in the mornings? So again, with the talk of well-being, is any consideration being given to moving the start time of middle school and high school students to be more appropriate for adolescents? Dr. Sharp, secondary, assistant superintendent.
Well, considering that last year we moved everybody to be on the 7:30 start time, that's a pretty good question. There is national research that's out there that speaks to that. That's a part of the vision process that we have here. It's one of the opportunities that we have tonight to actually take a look at that, to actually see the research that does talk about high school kids that really do exceptionally well at 9, 10, 11, 12 o'clock in the morning, as versus starting 7:30, 7:35, 8, and where younger kids do or learn better in the morning versus in the afternoon. A lot of factors that play into that, most notably athletics. I don't want to get too far deep into conversation with that, but those are parts, and there's lots of factors that you think about that and where that goes versus childcare in the afternoon, students that go home to take care of other students, things like that. So there's several factors there, but yes, could be a lot of conversation when you create that vision as to how you can get them there within the day. Because what Missouri says, we have to have specifically DESI versus seat time and how we can structure what a day looks like. So great question, would be a part of the conversations we look to possibly restructure.
All right, there's two questions here about land ownership in Lee Summit. This first one is about, does LSR 7 currently lease any property from other businesses? Does LSR 7 lease any facility to another business or school for them to occupy? And then this other one is kind of similar. Does land exist to build a new high school? I thought land had been purchased by Smart Road.
Okay, first of all, yes, we do have a very significant lease, and that is in this building we're in right now. We lease 57% of the space in this building to UCM for their programs. And they paid for 57% of this building that is owned by our 7 school districts. So really a pretty great deal for the school district. As far as land ownership by the district, the school district owns a 20-acre site in Chapman Farms, which is on the northeast corner of 7 Highway and Colburn Road. So we have a 20-acre site there. I'll just tell you original intentions. Everything's kind of on the table through our discussions. Our original intentions for that would have been for an elementary school. The school district owns a second piece of property. We own 51 acres on Bailey Road between Hamlin and Ransom. Okay, so south side of Bailey, between Hamlin and Ransom, we own 51 acres. Original intention for that site would have been for an elementary school, or a middle school. But again, discussions are out there on what the district needs are. There has not ever been a high school site located, any ideas. I mean, it's always been amazing to me that the talk about high school sites in this town, but we've never had even an option for a 60 to 80 acre site with all the appropriate utilities that would be required for a high school site.
This is a great question. Teachers need to be given more support so they have less out-of-pocket expenses, mostly K through 6. This may be more of a comment, but it relates to facilities. Teachers need to be given more support so they have less out-of-pocket expenses. Anything we want to talk about to address the cost of being a teacher and out-of-pocket expenses?
I would certainly echo that is something for us to continue to consider when we talk about equitable access for instructional programs. And as a district, as we are looking at instructional programs and purchases from the budget that is set forth by our Board of Education. So we do include those types of resources. Some of those pretties that are in teachers' classrooms, I think from the days of way before, teachers put some of that into play, out of their own pocket. Could we do more of that from the building? We would always like to be able to do that. So I think that is a continual question that we have in our buildings, certainly that we have as a district too. And we appreciate the pretties.
Yeah, this is similar in nature to that question, Dr. Gephardt. Future-ready learning sounds expensive if every building will need to be redesigned. How will the district pay for this? Future-ready learning sounds expensive if every building will need to be redesigned. How will the district pay for this?
I'm just going to add a little bit to this, and we see it all the time, in that some of the things that we showed in the imagery might look expensive, but the cost per square foot isn't as much as you might think. Sometimes the more expensive things can be the furniture and or the changes that you can make in a building or in a classroom is really just furniture. Most of the time when we talk to teachers and we say, if we give you one thing in your building, they tell us furniture. That's usually the number one thing. So, we'll probably, as Kyle talked about, create some standards so the district can do those things incrementally if they need to for cost purposes, because you probably can't just turn around tomorrow and do it everywhere. Dr. Carpenter has talked about some things that I think we're all tuned into, is lighthouses and the places that are those kind of activities are happening, and how do we make sure that we can help that happen in certain places, but spread that out throughout the district.
I'm just going to add one more comment that, a lot of times people see, little rolly things and little, pretty stuff. And that is absolutely not why we're doing any of this. We don't want anything to look better. We want it to function better for kids. And so every single decision that we make here is going to be weighed against the needs of the kid. If something needs to move, if a table, a chair, a wall, if it needs to move, it's because educational staff tells us there's a curricular need that's going to benefit a kid or a certain subgroup of kid or whoever it is, that the kid needs something to learn and it's going to impact our learning environment. So all these changes, yeah, they're going to be renovations, they're going to be new, they're going to look great, but they're functionally going to make a difference in kids' learning environments.
And this question is, we have time for more question, about 2 minutes left. This question remarks, I feel like the future-ready learning is a distraction and shouldn't be in the scope of work here. Dr. Miller, in the hierarchy of needs, let's get facilities capacity resolved first. We've got great teachers that set up future-ready classrooms. So Dr. Miller, can you address that? Again, I feel like future-ready learning is a distraction and shouldn't be in the scope. The hierarchy of needs, let's get facilities capacity resolved first. We've got great teachers that set up future-ready classrooms.
I think one of the things we want to be careful about is we don't, the CFMP occurs very rarely, right? Probably every 5 to 10 years. And what we don't want to do is we don't want to miss an opportunity. This is an opportunity for us to really look at what instructional needs are. There are some real capacity issues that we have to address, but for us to eliminate the instructional need, I believe would be a mistake. And so while I understand the comment, again, students' learning has to be at the front and center of everything that we do. So.
Okay, the other questions that we're looking at here fall in the same category as some of the questions that we previously asked, and our time is up. Is there any final thoughts that you'd like to offer that we didn't get to talk about? Well, we thank you for your time this evening. I don't know, Corey, if you want to side by side with this next part with me, but we're going to move into the gallery walk portion of the evening. There's a station over here. There's a station out in the hallway. We invite you to look at those boards, answer, get more questions answered for you from the team of people who are here from the district. We also want you to take our exit survey. They're on the computers back here. There's also paper surveys as you exit. Yeah, you're welcome to take and fill those out while you're here. We thank you again for being here. What a great opportunity for us. Come engage in the gallery walks, and we'll look forward to visiting with you over there. Thank you so much.